Surely his goodness and mercy here daily attend thee. And ponder anew what the Almighty can do, if with his love he befriend thee. Praise to the Lord, oh let all that is in me adore him. And all that have life and breath come now with praises before him. And let the amen sound from his people again. And gladly for aye we adore him. Let the amen sound from his people again. And gladly for aye we adore him. Hallelujah. Be thou my vision, O Lord of my heart. Not be all else to me, save that thou art. Thou my best thought by day or by night. Waking or sleeping, thy presence my light. Be thou my wisdom, and thou my true word. I ever with thee, and thou with me, Lord. Thou my great Father, and I thy true Son. Thou in me dwelling, and I with thee one. Riches I heed not, nor man's empty praise. Thou mine inheritance now and always. Thou and thou only first in my
Search me, oh God, and know every thought. Discern my every way, and speak into my soul. Point out to me my wrongs, convict me until I follow down the path that leads me to your will. Because my heart sometimes can wander, and my faith at times can stray. But I know that when I fix my eyes on you, that I will always remain safe in the shadows of your grace, grace, God's grace, grace that will pardon and cleanse within. Grace, grace, God's grace, a grace that is greater than all my sin. I praise you because I'm fearfully made. You form my frame in a secret place. All of my days, ordained before I breathed, written in your book before I came to be. Because your love, I stand and wonder. You know I come to thee, knowing that when I fix my eyes on you, I will always remain safe in the shadows of your grace, grace, God's grace, grace that will pardon and cleanse within. Grace, grace, God's grace, a grace that is greater than all my sin. God's grace, a grace that will pardon and cleanse within. Grace, grace, God's grace, a grace that is greater than all my sin. A grace that will pardon and cleanse within. Grace, grace, God's grace, a grace that is greater than all my sin. Grace that is greater than all my sin. Than all my sin. It's greater, it's greater. It's greater, it's greater. It's greater, it's
All right, good morning. Good to see you all. Let's stand and let's go to church for a while. How great is our God? The splendor of the King, He's clothed in majesty. Let all the earth rejoice, all the earth rejoice. He wraps Himself in light, and darkness tries to hide. The trembling voice trembles at His voice. How great is our God? Sing with me, how great is our God. And all will sing how great is our God. Is to reign, He stands. Oh, time is in His signs, beginning and the end, beginning and the end. He's the Godhead, three in one. Oh, the Father, Spirit, Son, the Lion and the Lamb, the Lion and the Lamb. How great is our God. So sing with me, how great is our God. Lord will see how great is our God. He's the name above all names. He is worthy of all our praise. And my heart will sing, how great is our God. He's the name above all our names. He is worthy of all our praise. And my heart will sing, how great is our God. How great is our God. Sing with me, how great is our God. And all will sing how great is our God. How great is our God. Sing with me, how great is our God. And all will sing how great is our God. He's the name above all our names. He is worthy of all our praise. And my heart will sing, how great is our God. 'Cause you're the name above all names. You are worthy of all our praise. Oh, my heart will sing, how great is our God.
Good morning, everybody. Okay. I'm going to be reading in 1 Peter 4, 7 and 8. Okay. Now the end of all things is near. Therefore, be serious and disciplined for prayer. Above all, maintain an intense love for each other, since love covers a multitude of sins. Dear God, our Father in heaven, we thank you for bringing us here today, dear Lord. I just want to praise you and thank you for just being my God. Thank you. Just be with Pastor Cotton today, dear Lord, as he gives your word. And we just want to praise you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Let's continue on, if y'all don't mind. Let's pick up the pace, maybe. Y'all seem to be dragging this morning. There's no space that his love can't reach. There's no place where we can't find peace. There's no end to amazing grace. Take me in with your arms spread wide. Take me in like an orphan child. Never let go, never leave my side. I am holding on to you. I am holding on to you. In the middle of the storm, I'm holding on. I am a love like this. Oh my God, divine, I am overwhelmed with the joy divine. Love like this sets our hearts on fire. I am holding on to you. I am holding on to you. In the middle of the storm, I'm holding on. Storm, I'm holding on. I'm holding on. Well, this is my resurrection song. This is my hallelujah song. This is why it's to you I run. There's no space that our love can't reach. There's no place where we can't find peace. There's no end to amazing grace. I am holding on to you. I am holding on to you. In the middle of the storm, I'm holding on. I am holding on to you. I am holding on to you. In the middle of the storm, I'm holding on. I am holding on to you. I am holding on to you. In the middle of the storm, I'm holding on. In the middle of the storm, I'm holding on. I am. Oh, in the middle of the storm, yes, we are holding on, I hope. If you're not, you might be being blown. So let's talk about a glorious day this morning. One day when heaven was filled with his praises, One day when sin was as black as could be, Jesus came forth to be born of a virgin, dwelt among men, my example is he. The Word became flesh and light shined among us, His glory revealed, living in love, dying He saved me, buried He carried my sins far away, rising He justified, freely forever. One day He's coming, oh glorious day, oh glorious day. One day they led Him up Calvary's mountain. One day they nailed Him down a tree, suffering anguish, despised and rejected, bearing our sins, my Redeemer is He. The hand that healed nations stretched down a tree, took the nails for me, living in love me, dying He saved me, buried He carried my sins far away, oh rising He justified, freely forever. One day He's coming, oh glorious day, oh glorious day. One day the grave could conceal Him no longer. One day the stone rolled away from the door. Then He arose, over death He had conquered. Now is unseen, my Lord evermore. Death cannot hold Him, slave cannot treat Him, rising again, living in love me, dying He saved me, buried He carried my sins far away, rising He justified, freely forever. One day He's coming, a glorious day, glorious day, glorious day. One day the trumpet will sound for His coming. One day the skies with His glory will shine. Wonderful day, my beloved one bringing. My Savior Jesus is mine. He's living, He loved me, dying He saved me, buried He carried my sins far away, rising He justified, freely forever. One day He's coming, oh glorious day, glorious day, oh glorious day, oh glorious day. you ever have someone that told you that they were your friend and that they would always be there for you? And then all of a sudden you found out, not really. They told me one thing, but you really needed them and they were never there. They were always too busy to listen or to just hear your issues or hear your problem. Well, I found a friend that never leaves me, never deserts me. And, you know, even as bad as I am sometimes, he doesn't go around talking about me, except to Satan. And what he says is, no, he's my friend. He's my child. And you need to leave him alone. And that's the friend that we all are looking for. One that the Bible says that will stick closer than a brother. One that will always be there no matter what time at night. He doesn't have his disconnect button. He's always got his ears and his heart attentively listening for the cries of his people. So let's stand and let's sing a song. It's kind of a fast song. Just says, I'm a friend of God. 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 He calls me friend. I'm a friend of God. I'm a friend of God. I'm a friend of God. He calls me friend. Who am I that you are mindful of me? That you hear me when I call. Is it true that you are thinking of me? How you love me? It's amazing. I'm a friend of God. I'm a friend of God. I'm a friend of God. He calls me friend. I'm a friend of God. I'm a friend of God. I'm a friend of God. He calls me friend. Who am I that you are mindful of me? Mindful of me. Oh, you hear me when I call your name. Is it true that you are thinking of me? Thinking of me. How you love me. How you love me. It's amazing. So amazing. It's amazing. I'm a friend of God. I'm a friend of God. I'm a friend of God. He calls me friend. I'm a friend of God. I'm a friend of God. I'm a friend of God. He calls me friend. God Almighty, Lord of glory, you have called me friend. God Almighty, Lord of glory, you have called me friend. You may be seated. Okay. You want to mute this iPad? All righty.
Everybody needs inspiration. Everybody needs a song, a beautiful melody. When the nights are long, 'cause there is no guarantee that this life is easy. Yeah, when my world is falling apart, when there's no light to break up the dark, that's when I look at you. When the waves are flooding the shore and I can't find my way home anymore, that's when I look at you. When I look at you, I see forgiveness. I see the truth. You love me for who I am, like the stars hold the moon, right there where they belong. And I know I'm not alone. Yeah, when my world is falling apart, when there's no light to break up the dark, that's when I look at you. When the waves are flooding the shore and I can't find my way home anymore, that's when I look at you. You appear just like a dream to me, just like kaleidoscope colors that cover me. All I need, every breath that I breathe. Don't you know you're beautiful? When the waves are flooding the shore and I can't find my way home anymore, that's when I look at you. I look at you. You appear just like a dream to me.
I don't like this. And so I'm going to do my own thing. And he ended up in trouble. Lots of trouble. And so sometimes, I think I've told you, that sometimes sermons pop up and you think, oh, well, the pastor planned it this way. And I don't. A lot of times I'll go through and I try to plan out for the next year. Okay, God, what is it that you want? And if you look at the sermons, most of the time they are kind of interrelated from one subject to another subject to another subject to another subject. And so sometimes when you hit these sermons, you all think, okay, why don't you get off my toes? Why are you always preaching at me? Okay? And so let me share this with you. This sermon isn't about you, or it might be, but it's definitely about me, okay? And when I started doing this sermon, little did I know that it would pop up I knew kind of when it would pop up, but little did I know certain other things would occur. And so let me just preface this and just kind of share with you. Have you ever been under attack? Have you ever had people ruining your reputation? Social media trolling you? See, most of you generally don't have people trolling you. I do. For instance, we'll just you read what you want to read, okay? I posted a picture on Facebook not too long ago. I've been working in my yard, okay? I had my house, and that I live in, and a lot of people have criticized me for where I live, okay? Because my house is nice, okay? But God has blessed me immensely in a lot of things. So I've been working because we had when we bought the house, we had lights put in and accent lights and everything, and they had all burnt out. They were the old, I want to call them car light bulbs, is what they looked like. And now you got the new LED lights, which are a lot cheaper on electricity and also give you a little more crisp. And so I was working in the yard, and I started putting the lights up, and I really posted the picture, and I said, I finally got the lights done. And a comment was made about preachers who have these big, fine houses, and they shouldn't. And I thought, okay, maybe I should move. Okay. And then most of y'all know I love to cruise. And God has really blessed me to be able to travel. Because when I was a kid, we never went on vacation. I remember one vacation in my life, and that was when I turned 16 years of age, and I was bugging my mom to let me drive. So she said, okay, you want to drive? We're going to Kentucky. Not just to Kentucky. We're going to Kentucky. To coal country. And if you've ever driven in the hills of Kentucky and coal country, the roads on some of the places are wide enough for a coal truck. And if you're on that road, they ask you to move over. Well, I am 16 years of age, just got my license. I'm driving on there, and here comes this coal truck. And my mom says, you need to get over. And I said, where? She said, anywhere, find a place to get over. And I said, there is no place. On my left-hand side is a cliff. On my right-hand side is the hill. And a little run off. Somehow we made it through that coal truck. Only by God's. That's the only vacation I ever remembered. And so Diana, growing up, her dad and mom would take her on vacation. So when we got married, we would start going places and having vacations. So when I had kids, I said, I want my kids to know what a vacation is like and take them places. So I did. And so I posted about my trip and just go out and read some of the comments about a preacher that is taking a trip to the Caribbean with his wife, having dinners at church for his congregation, but not feeding the homeless. When people are being evicted from their homes, not giving them money. And it's just like one right after another. I think I've already shared with you that I need your prayers because my reputation is being smeared just constantly right now by some people that I never thought would do this. And so when it came to this message, I had to really look at this message and say, okay, who is this for? Them or me? And so I had to preach it to me first, okay, before I could even do it with you guys. Because it's easy for you to get upset with people. And especially when God has got something for this church. He really does. He put it here in this area for a reason. It wasn't by coincidence that this church here was voted the #1 church for impact of Middletown for this year. And some people don't like that. Well, Satan doesn't like that. And I've shared with you some of the things that I believe that God has in store. And in January, I'll share the rest, okay, as we kind of lay some foundations as to what God's doing behind the scenes that you guys don't know about yet. And we'll share with you. And Satan doesn't want that to happen. And as you can see, it's not just us. It's congregations all over this city, this nation, are in decline. Why? Because Satan doesn't want us to get the message out to those that are outside. He doesn't want us sharing. There's bigger churches you can go to, and you can get lost in them. And never have to do anything. But in a small church that's active, you're asked to do things to reach people. We've been asked to house homeless for the winter. And it's how are we going to do that? And how are we going to share? Yesterday was Pastor Appreciation Day for the Hispanic church, and they asked Diana and I to come, and Diana wasn't feeling well, and so I came. And you wouldn't believe how appreciative they are that you all have allowed them to just meet here. They have already baptized 2 people. One was a 67-year-old lady. The second one was a guy by the name of Pepe that I met. Pepe shared his story with me yesterday. He came to here from Mexico when he was 17. He has 3 other brothers, a mom and a dad, and 1 sister. He came here from Mexico because he wanted to get away from where he was at in Mexico at the age of 17 by himself to find a job so he could send money back to Mexico for his mom and dad so that they could one day come here. That was 20-some years ago. Pepe, for 5 years, by himself, built his house. Working, and then coming home and working on a house and building that house for 5 years. Well, none of his brothers or sisters have come here, and his mom and dad are still in Mexico. He says, but I need to share with you. He said, when I was in Mexico, there are 3 basic churches, okay? One is the Catholic Church. A lot of Hispanic are Catholic, okay? Another one is the Assemblies of God, which is another big, huge outreach in there. And the third one is the Seventh-day Adventists. Not many Baptist churches. So he came here. He found Jesus. His 17-year-old son was the second person baptized 2 weeks ago. And so I say that to say this. God is using this church to reach other people that are not just us. And they are very appreciative of you guys. They really are. And what you've allowed them to do and the work that they're trying to reach in this area. So, let's start to the sermon. What do I do? What do I do when things don't go my way? You see, a lot of us have our lives planned as to what we are going to do. And what happened is, I've shared with you when we started this about 3-4 weeks. Well, it's been a little bit more than 3 or 4 weeks now. It's been several weeks. And we started this, that every one of us are absolutely necessary to God. And we are special. No matter what anybody tells you, you are a very special, unique person. Do you know there is nobody on this earth that has your fingerprint? Do you know that there is nobody here on this earth that has exactly your DNA? There are some strands of DNA that they can get together and find out that you're related to this person and this person and this person, and they're using that more and more to solve crimes and stuff. They're doing that. But did you know this? That God broke the mold. Not when just He made me. He broke the mold after He creates every one of us. Because every one of us are absolutely unique. There is nobody else in this world that is like you. They may be 80%, maybe 70, maybe 60, maybe 10, maybe none. You may be polar opposites. But each and every one of us that are uniquely made were created for a purpose. You see, when God created all of this, He had a plan. He didn't one day just said, okay, I'm just going to throw this up, and wherever it lands and however it comes together, that's what I'm going to call creation. God is not a pop artist. He doesn't splatter paint on the canvas and say, what do you think that is? And use your imagination. What God says is he made man, woman, animals, trees, earth, planets, stars. He defined every one of them. And every one of them were uniquely made for a purpose. Every one. Even though they may not find life or that people don't understand what is this and what is that, God had it all for a purpose. Every bit of it. The moon is at a certain location, at a certain tilt, at a certain angle to affect certain things on this earth. The earth is at a certain tilt, at a certain rotation, traveling a certain path, and the gravity holding everything together. That was God. It was not something made out of chaos. Okay? Everybody says follow the science. Science is found in the Bible. And the Bible is found in science. Without the Bible, there is no science. But the science or the Bible can stand by itself without the science. Because there are some things in the Bible you can't explain. You just got to trust. And so when God made you, he had a plan that every one of us would uniquely fit this plan. And the problem is we've got our own agenda. We've got our plan of what we would like. And sometimes our plan doesn't mix well with God's plan. I know. Okay? And so what happens is things just don't go our way. And that's what we're going to talk about this morning. Because you need to understand something. You weren't made just to come on this earth, live, work, retire, and die. Why not? Because retirement in this life, ladies and gentlemen, means you're dying. But the job that God had planned for you, there is no retirement. But can I tell you something? That the job that you do for God in his plan, when you're retirement, nobody can take away your benefits. Because those are promised by God. And it's not consistent, or it doesn't depend on how well the world does. It's only dependent upon how well you do your job or your mission. That's your benefits. And sometimes we forget about those things. Now, I told you all along that there's 3 ways that you learn about something. You learn by explanation. That's school. Your teacher explains to you what are nouns, verbs, adjectives, pronouns. An adjective phrase or an adverb phrase, or a verb is something of action. A pronoun is kind of like a group of nouns or whatever. And all of these things, I didn't like English anyway. Okay? So those are just my explanation of some made-up words that everybody's put together. But you learn by example. You learn by experience. And there are times that in that experience, you're going to make mistakes. I only know of one individual that ever walked on the face of this earth that was absolutely perfect. And you and I are not him. Okay? You and I are not Jesus. He is. And he's the only one that's perfect. And you want to know why? The seed that created him had no sin. Because the seed that created him was God. Not a man. He was the Son of God, not the son of Joseph. Joseph took him in as his son, raised him as his son. Mary took him, gave birth to him. But the seed of sin never came through, gentlemen, never came through the woman. It is us men. We're responsible for this mess. And take it up with Adam. Okay? And so you learn from those things. Now, we talked about Jonah. And we talked about how that God had given Jonah a job to do. And what does he do? He runs in the opposite direction. Where God told him, I need you to go to Nineveh, Jonah decided, I am not going to Nineveh. I'm going to the furthest place that I know of, away in the opposite direction from Nineveh. He went to a place called Tarsus. And Tarsus was it was a seaport in Spain, what we call Spain today. He was catching a boat and getting out of Dodge. He was leaving and going as far away as he can. So let's start with the slides. So, and giving you a kind of an overview of the four chapters of Jonah. Okay, in chapter 1. We see that Jonah's rebelling and he's running from God. And he says, God, I don't want to do your plan. I want to do my plan. I don't want to go with your mission of my life. I just kind of want to go and do what I want to do. Chapter 2, we see Jonah repenting. And what's he doing? Repenting means turn from the way that you are going and turning back to God. And so what was he doing? He was repenting, and he's running back to God, and he says, okay, I'll do it. Then we go to chapter 3, where Jonah is given a second chance, so he's restarting, and he's running to God, and he says, okay, I'm going to do it. But he's doing it with some baggage. He's got a bad attitude. His attitude really stinks. And if I could use the term, it really sucks. Because he's not really doing what God wants him to do. I'll do it, but I'm not. But some would say, well, at least he's doing what God told him to do. Yeah, but his attitude was not good. And there are times that God calls us to do things that we don't like, and so we say, okay, fine, I'll just go ahead and do it. We do it, but the attitude's not there. And we wonder, why, God, am I not being blessed? And he says, attitude adjustment. You need to change your attitude. You're doing the job, but your attitude stinks. So, in this 4th chapter, we're going to find out that Jonah is regretting and he's even resenting because God changes his plans, and Jonah doesn't like the plans that God's changing them to. See, God told him, I want you to go there and tell them I'm going to destroy them. And now all of a sudden, God's not destroying them. And Jonah says, okay, I told them I did the message that you wanted me to do, and I know certain things about you, and one of those is that you're faithful, and you said you're going to destroy them, and you are doing that. So Jonah's kind of a little bit ticked off. And he's ticked off at God. Okay? And so we're going to talk about a few more mistakes that Jonah made. Okay? And figure out and look at remembering what happens when things just don't go your way. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, you are not the singers of Frank Sinatra's song, I Did It My Way, or the gentleman that made it more famous than Frank Sinatra and Elvis Presley. You're neither. And you look and see some of the things that are gone. We are more aware, I believe, right now than probably any other time in history that I know of, that the world is broken. You look at our economy. It isn't just America that's suffering. It is the world that is suffering. Elon Musk, who has SpaceX and Tesla, the richest man in the world, even he cannot get parts for his cars. And so guess what? He's losing money this year because he's got a lot of orders that he cannot fill. If you read the news, a little ways down the road on 75 in Georgetown, Kentucky, Chevrolet has their car plant. They build Corvettes. And a lot of people are buying the Corvettes. But guess what? They can't get them. They can't. There's certain parts that they need that they can't get. And so therefore, they can't do it. Remember not too long ago, there were mothers whose babies could not take breast milk, so they had baby formula. And guess what happened? They couldn't get formula. I'm sure if you go into any, because I've done this, you go into any supermarket today, there are certain products you can't find on the shelves. There are some products that have going away. Even in Walmart, they're having trouble getting items. Why? Because most everything is made in China. You look at all of the ports, there are ships that are backed up. We were in Galveston and we were counting the ships that were stuck out in the middle of the ocean because they don't have dock workers to unload the ships. The economy's a mess. The price of gas has gone up, almost doubled. Truckers, the profits on their loads, they're just barely making it. Some can't make it. They have to pay. How much is a new truck, Chris? Okay. A new truck, $140,000, probably more now. More than a house in some people's. And it's not just the truck, the maintenance of that truck. It isn't, I can go to the nearest place and I can get an oil change for $5. I don't think so. How about a set of tires? Well, there's a couple thousand. And you have no idea how long it's going to last. And so you see all of these things that are happening and these things that are going on. Prices of houses. The price of renting a home in Middletown. Do you understand that the price of rent went up during the pandemic when people weren't working? Well, why did it go up? Do you ever understand why it went up? Can I give you a little understanding as to why the price of rent went up? Because number one, they knew that you could not be evicted. And they also knew that the government was going to give you money. So, hey, government's giving you money. I'm going to reach in my pocket, and you're going to give me some of that money. But as soon as that went out, how many evictions were there? As soon as the money got shut off, the eviction notices went. But guess what? The price of the rent never went down. It stayed the same, or probably went up. So it's a mess. The weather, it's broken. I mean, you look at it. In the West, where it's generally dry, they had a monsoon season this year that flooded everything. You go to Florida, you see all the destruction and everything. Why? A hurricane comes this way. It only happens every once in a while, but it's a mess. You don't know when. And there are hurricanes and tornadoes and flooding showing up in places that's never had it in a long time. It's going around in all of these things that are there. Relationships are broken. I was sharing with some, if you haven't heard the news, they are the Pediatric Associates of America are now recommending that all children age 12, starting at age 12, be checked for a mental illness. Specifically, depression and anxiety. Why? Because these kids are coming out of this pandemic. They're suffering anxiety, depression. A 15-year-old shot and killed 5 people just the other night. What caused a 15-year-old to do that? It wasn't just him. Numerous repeaters, 13, 14, 15 years of age, that are killing people, robbing people. They're going into stores knowing that there's a milk shortage. And guess what? These teenagers, not anything but teenagers, are going into the stores and just dumping gallons of milk in the stores. What was it? It was the Green Mob Squad in New York. There was about 10 or 12 of them that were robbing people on the subways. They were all dressed up in the same garb. They caught 4 of them, they think. You're seeing all of this stuff going on, and it's a mess. The planet, it's just nothing on this planet is working in all of these things, okay? And we all had these plans of what was going to happen. And all of a sudden, things changed in the last couple of years. Drastically changed. And now we've got to make different plans that are there. So, let's talk about 5 mistakes that Jonah made. Number 1, and again, I had outlines, and if you didn't pick them up, you can pick them up on your way out. Number 1, Jonah thought that he could ignore his mission, that he could run from God. How'd that work out? Not good at all. Because let me tell you something. You may think that you can run from God, but ladies and gentlemen, when you're running from God, you're going to hit the bottom. And guess who you're running into? It's not Satan. You're running into God. Because when God has a mission for you to do, you cannot run from him without running into him. And when you reach the bottom, you're going to cry out, God, where are you? And he says, I'm right here in front of you. Well, why weren't you with me? If you would have turned around, you would have understood I was right there. That's why David wrote, even though I go to the highest of the heavens, God, you're there. Even when I go to the deepest of hell, God, you're there. I can't get away from you. That's the number one mistake that Jonah made, thinking he could run from God. Number two, Jonah was prejudiced against the people that God created. If you ever look at it, you saw that he did not like those people because they were the adversary of the Jewish people. When I was talking to the Spanish people yesterday, when they gave me an opportunity to speak, I shared with them this, and this is what I truly believe. This is why in this church, we don't like to single out one race of people, because God is a creator of all races. And it doesn't matter the color of your skin. You are loved by God, created by God to do a mission. And we work together. It doesn't matter if you can't speak English or you can't speak Spanish. It doesn't matter if you speak Swahili or anything else. We're all created for a purpose and a mission. And to say, like when I grew up in church, if an African American walked into our church, the deacons would meet them before they could even get 3 rows up there and tell them, I think you're in the wrong church. You're looking for the church down the road. And as I grew older and realizing, hold on a minute, this isn't right. I'm going to school with people who don't look like me, who don't act like me, and eat different kinds of food than I do. But they're some of the nicest people I've ever met. And it's like, what's wrong with you all? Well, they took my job. Well, you took somebody else's job. So should we hate you? No. So he was prejudiced. Number 3, Jonah cared more about his politics than salvation. God told you, I want you to go to Nineveh. There, we're going to try and save this place. And Jonah says, I don't like these people. And sometimes, and you think about it, there are churches that are totally divided today because one is a Democrat and one's a Republican. And we've allowed our politics to run our life. May I say this to you? I am neither a Democrat or a Republican, and that's not who I am. I am a child of God. My allegiance belongs to God, okay? And if there's a Republican running and I don't like his attitude or his politics because of certain things, for instance, abortion. If there was a Republican that said he was for abortion, I wouldn't vote for him. If it's a Democrat that was doing that, I wouldn't vote for it. If it was an independent, a libertarian, conservative, whatever, I wouldn't vote for him. Why? Because I don't agree with their beliefs. And I'm not just voting for an initial. I want to vote for someone that's kind of close to my beliefs. And somebody that I think is going to rein some of this stuff in, because most of them are going to spend your money. And some of it's on worthless stuff, okay? So, number 4, Jonah was only interested in his nation, not the whole world. He was only concerned about where he was at, okay? And number 5, Jonah reluctantly fulfilled his mission, but he did it with a bad attitude. His message was, 40 days, God's going to destroy this place. But his message was, you guys are going to die. Bye. He was not showing any love whatsoever. He was showing an attitude of non-gratitude of what he was going to do. And listen, this is where in chapter 4 we come to, and Jonah's going to make 2 more mistakes, and both of them involve resentment. Because Jonah doesn't get his way, he's resentful. And there are some times when you don't get your way and you become resentful, you're hurting yourself more than the other individual. Okay? And sometimes, and this is where, again, you have to understand something. There are people that have hurt me, okay? And I don't like that they've hurt me. But at the same time, I give it to God and say, I forgive them. Now, if they don't want to do anything about it, that's theirs. But, God, I just want to do what you want me to do. And I'm going to go on. And you handle whatever you need to handle. Because let me say this to you. One of the things that you need to realize, and sometimes I need to be reminded of it, and that is this. Anytime that somebody hurt you really bad, and they won't say that they're sorry, and you're holding that in, you're not hurting them, because they could care less. Because if they cared that they hurt you, they would come and apologize to you. And if they don't, all you've got to do is just forgive them and move on. And move on. Because by holding that in, you're hurting yourself. You're not hurting them. And sometimes we need to be reminded of those things. So, if you've got somebody that hurt you 10, 15, 20 years ago, and you're holding it against them, let it go. Just let it go and move on. Because God's got other things for you to do. Now, the 2 mistakes that Jonah made in here, it's as they get bigger and bigger. So, number 1, it was he resented God's plan because it didn't fit his plan. I don't like what you want me to do, God, because that's not my plan. And when you look at the verses, the first one that I got to go up there is in Jonah chapter 3 and verse number 10, and then the first couple of verses of the next one. And it said, when God saw that the people of Nineveh had put a stop to their evil ways, he said he had mercy on them, and he canceled the destruction that he had threatened. Do you understand that? Jonah is ticked off. He's upset with God. You told me to go tell them that you're going to destroy them. And I'm sitting here waiting with glee. I am absolutely ecstatic that you are going to destroy this place called Nineveh. And I'm waiting, God. I'm waiting. I'm waiting for you to get even with those people that have hurt me. And God, I don't see you doing that. As a matter of fact, I see where you're doing the opposite. He resented God because it's not his plan that was there. So Jonah became furious and he complained to God. Listen, God told them that there's certain things that you need to understand. And we talked about it last week. If you're doing something and the Holy Spirit comes to you and convicts you of that, that is a warning. Now, what does God say? There's a verse that basically says this, that God chastens or basically disciplines those that he loves. Okay? And if you're doing something wrong and you're convicted of it and God's not disciplining you, we got a problem. Because God warns you. Okay? Now let me say this to you. If you're doing something wrong, God could punish you. He has every right to discipline you. Your parents, us as parents, when your child did something wrong the first time, did you whip them? Huh? Most of the time, I would say probably 95 to 99% of the time, when your children did something wrong the first time, you probably gave them a warning, right? If you do that again, or you did that and that was wrong, and let me explain to you what it is. If you do that again, I'm going to discipline you. You know what you were showing your children? Grace. Where did we learn that from? God. God sends us warnings before he disciplines us. If we don't heed the warning, we're going to get the discipline because he's extended grace, but he's also going to be faithful. May I say this to you? I don't think that God says, I'm going to count to 3, and if you do that again, I'm going to whip you. I think God's going to say, warning, do it again, you're disciplined, and I'm not going to count to 3. He's a patient God, but he's also faithful to his word. God told him, and what was really something that Jonah didn't understand, and I'll probably end up finishing this next week, okay? Because I'm only a third of the way through this thing. And I've learned I don't have to finish these because they continue. So, how do I know when I'm resentful to God or resentful with God? And may I say, there are 5 emotions that you will experience. Okay? Again. So, number 1 is frustration. Okay? Frustration in your life is a sign that you are resenting God. Why? The Bible said this change of plans upset Jonah. He's frustrated with God. Okay? He got very upset. He got ticked off at God, if I could use that term. And he did. When God says, I'm sending you here, I've already sent warning signs to him. I've already prepared their hearts for your message. They are ready to receive. Remember what we talked about last week? Within a period of about 7 years, Nineveh had disaster after disaster after disaster. A 7-year famine, total eclipse. They were flooded. Nineveh sits right between the Tigris and Euphrates river, and there's a earthquake fault. They had a huge earthquake that totally devastated the city. They had to rebuild. God warned them of their evil. And God kept warning them and warning them and warning them. And finally, he sends a messenger saying, listen, you haven't listened to any other word that God has said. He tried to warn you with the famine. He tried to warn you with the earthquake. He tried to warn you with the destruction of your city, your economy. He tried to warn you with all of these things, and you didn't listen to him. Now I'm sending my messenger to you to warn you that if you don't listen to his message and repent, in 40 days, I'm destroying this place. And guess what? Revival broke out in that nation. And Jonah was ticked off. I mean, it's like all of a sudden revival breaks out in this church, and you come to church one day and you can't find a place to park in the parking lot. You can't find a seat to sit in. I got to find the overflow section. How dare you sit in my seat? Well, man, I just got saved. Hey, I've been saved for 50 years, and my butt print's on that seat. It belongs to me. It took me 50 years to break that chair in, even though it's only been here 5. And who wants you here anyway? You got snotty-nosed kids. You don't look like me. You don't eat like me. You don't act like me. You're going to change me. And God's saying, yep. God, I prayed that the church would be overflowing, but not with these people. Here's the people I wanted. You know, I wanted my brother, my sister, my mom, my dad. I didn't want all these strangers. All these strangers I got to talk to. I got to get to know them. And you know how uncomfortable I am about that, huh? And God says, yep, get out of your comfort zone. And Jonah's back there watching as the revival's breaking out, and Jonah is ticked off about it. That's the first emotion. Number 2, it's angry. Not only is he ticked off, he becomes furious. That word in the Bible where it talks about furious, it's kind of comes right after resentment, and it says that he complained to the Lord, and he goes, oh, poor me, nobody likes me, everybody hates me, I'm going to go eat worms. Doesn't that sound like a little kid? You know? Nobody likes me, I'm just going to go eat me some worms. Really? What? It's like you say something that makes no sense. And he's angry with him. And so what does he do? He goes and has him a pity party. And can I tell you something? You can't have a pity party by yourself. You've got to invite somebody. So what do? You invite me, myself, and I. And the 3 of you sit there together having a pity party. Me says to myself, Do you know what they did to me yesterday? No, but I says, I feel your pain. I know they did the same thing to me. And me, myself, and I has a party together, just drowning in your sorrow because nobody likes me. Now, in the next verse, when you look, he says, now Jonah says, I asked you, Lord, please kill me. Really? Please kill me. For it's better for me to die than to live. God, just kill me. I'd rather be dead than alive. He's sinking. He's sinking in this pity party. And do you know why I'm telling you this? Look at what this happens. There's a progression starting here. You're mad at God. You've gone from resentment to anger. Now, number 3, you've gone to self-pity. And here's where these 3 lead you to. Depression and suicide. This is what Jonah is experiencing, ladies and gentlemen. And when people say that Christians cannot experience these things, they are absolutely wrong. Because yes, they can. Jonah is going through it. Look at what he said. It's better for me to die than to live. He is sinking very low in depression. What's the sense of me living? And then what happens? He gets into a severe depression to the point where he's getting suicidal. Lord, just kill me. I don't want to live. My plans didn't work out, so I don't want to live. Just take my life. You see these stories, and no, I'll stop here. That, give me just a few more minutes, and then I got a better stopping point. When hate starts filling your heart, it starts flooding your body with emotions. And these emotions just keep running and running and running. And what happens is as you're going from this point to this point to this point, it starts this progression that if you don't stop, you're going to a place that you don't want to go to. And if you can understand what the warning signs are, and these are the warning signs that God is showing us, that here's what happened in Jonah's life. And he's giving us this illustration to let us know that if you don't check these at a certain spot, here's going to be the score. And it's going to get worse and worse and worse against you. And this is what happens when things don't go our way, to coming to this point. Because, again, if you don't let it go. There was a guy, a very famous preacher, that I found this story, and I won't give you the names. But he said, I remember many years ago when my wife and I first got married. He said the first year, about 6 months into our marriage, we were not getting along in our marriage and we were fighting like crazy. We were like brand new newlyweds. My wife thought that she was having a nervous breakdown. I ended up in the hospital. I was in the hospital, and I remember a psychiatrist came in and he said, this is like 45 years ago. The psychiatrist comes in to me and he goes, so what's your problem? I said, well, I'm depressed. I'm depressed. And he says, so really, what are you angry about? And I said, oh no, I'm not angry. I'm just depressed. And he says, depression is sometimes frozen anger. And he says, when you swallow your emotions, your stomach keeps score. Because what you're swallowing goes into your stomach, and it needs to digest it. And sometimes it can't. It doesn't know what to do with it. And he says, so I was angry with my wife and I was swallowing it. I wasn't expressing it. I was repressing it. And it was causing depression. He said, when you hold anger, when you hold hatred, when you hold hurt, when you hold resentment in your heart, you're not hurting the other person. You're hurting yourself. You got to let it go. He says, that's a mistake that Jonah made. I just want to die. And sometimes we've got to understand if we don't let it go, it's going to kill us. And I don't know about you, I'm not ready to die. I know that I'm going to heaven. And I understand at the end of the day, that's where I'm going to go. This last week, I've watched, as I shared with you, two people that I grew up with. One was a young man that I met when he was 19. I was like 30, 33, 34 when I met him. He's like 60 something. He died. He was what, 55? Okay. And he died. A girl that was my brother-in-law's sister, or my sister's sister-in-law, whichever way you want to go. She was sick but wouldn't tell anybody how sick she was. And so she goes to the doctor. And what they found out was that all of the pain that she was feeling inside, that she didn't tell anybody about, was nothing but infection on the whole inside of her body. And it was so far along they couldn't do anything about it. And she ends up dying 2 days later. And I'm talking to her husband. And he said if she'd only told me how sick she was. I took her to her doctor's appointments. But she never told me. She never told me. You see, ladies and gentlemen, God gives us warning signs to let us know that we need to let go of something, or else it's going to kill us. And the question is he finished with you yet? But he's going to quit warning us at some point. And the question is, do you recognize the warning signals? Because if you don't, it's going to go. So we got through verse 1. We've laid the foundation for next week. And we're going to help you to understand, how do I not do this? How do I learn to let it go? You see, because I've had to do the same thing. I think I was talking with someone this week, and I shared with them, I said, you know what? It's hard to do God's work when when it seems like the whole world is crumbling down in on you. That you walk over here to this person and they say, well, guess what I heard about you this week? Or somebody says, well, I seen this on Facebook about you, or I seen this on, I'm thinking, no, they won't use my name, but they use enough details that people can figure out who they're talking about. And I'm thinking, if you don't like me that much, why don't you just put my name there so at least everybody knows who it is you don't like? You know, I don't like riddles. But here's what I do know. God, I have definitely ticked off Satan. And you know what? I am absolutely ecstatic. Everybody says, I can't understand why you're so happy. I'm so happy because I have made Satan mad. And you know what? The only reason that Satan gets mad at me, and mad at you, is because you're doing God's work. When you're doing what it is that God wants you to do, Satan is ticked off. And so you know what? Tick, 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 tick. I'll add another tick and another tick. And I'll keep adding ticks. Because when I tick him off, he's going to leave somebody else alone. So give me your best shot. As the old song was, give me your best shot, fire away. That's my song of the week. You can tell what era I grew up in. Yeah. You want to play? Please. Here, let me just finish. The altar, as I try to remind you, but I don't do a good job of it all the time. You don't have to wait for an invitation to use this altar. This altar is open from the moment the church doors are open till the church doors are closed. And here's what God is saying. If you need to talk to me, talk to me. Nobody else needs to know what's going on, because this is between me and you, God says. But if you want to share, share. Why? Because sometimes in sharing, I'm asking for help. And I, and whether you realize it or not, I ask for prayers because, man, I need it. I need your prayers. I need your support to help fight off the enemy, because he is coming at full force. And so God is saying, no, come on. We got other things to do. We got other people to reach. There's more. And this morning, maybe he's saying the same thing to you. There's more. There's more you need to warn. There's more you need to tell. So this morning, as you leave, I ask you to do me a favor. Pray for each other. Pray for each other. Because some may be hurting, but they won't express it. They haven't said anything. And some, they're private. And God's trying to say, hey, guys, I really need you to pray for each other. Pray for the church. When you look around, you see the people that are missing. And again, it's become very easy to miss. People have become so preoccupied with other things and stuff. So just pray for them. If anything, you pray that God makes their bed too short, they can't sleep. That's scriptural. So that they can't so the covers are too short, and they try to lay down and get some peace and quiet, and they're tossing and turning because of that. Tonight, hold on 1 minute. Tonight, we have a bonfire, and we're doing s'mores and hot marshmallows, hot dogs, hot chocolate. So just kind of bring an appetite, okay? If you want to bring something, that's fine. Otherwise, we'll be doing that kind of in the foyer or in the courtyard back there. And so it's just another time of fellowshipping and everything. And so a lot of the other stuff is in the bulletin, so you can look and see what's going on, what's happening, okay? All of the stuff that are there.